Daniel is 24 years old. He graduated 18 months ago from a university in Accra with a first-class degree in accounting. He has been watching colleagues who studied abroad return to Ghana with credentials that open doors his domestic qualifications doesn't. He has decided to apply for a UK Masters in Finance. He has a shortlist of 4 universities. He has a spreadsheet. He knows the tuition fee to the nearest £100. He knows the IELTS requirements. He has read the QS rankings methodology. But the decision is not being made by the spreadsheet. Last Thursday evening on a video call with his mother, she asked him for the third time in 2 weeks whether he was sure. Not about the degree, about leaving, about the visa, about what happens if it doesn't work out. When the call ended, Daniel opened his laptop and went back to the 4 program pages. He wasn't looking for more data. He was looking for something that would make him feel certain that the institution he chose would take care of him once he got there. 3 of the 4 pages gave him more data. The 4th said in its opening paragraph, coming to study in the UK from West Africa involves more than choosing the right program. It involves trusting an institution with a decision that affects your family as much as it affects you. We understand that. Here's what we do to make sure you're not navigating it alone. Daniel hasn't yet submitted his application, but he knows which institution he will choose. This is Chapter 9. Before we get into it, links to the full book are in the description. The international student is not making one decision. They are making 5. And a copy that addresses only the academic dimension is speaking to a fraction of the person reading it. The 5 overlapping decisions, each with its own loss scenario, are these: financial loss, tuition and living costs in a foreign currency with exchange rate risk and no refund if the decision proves wrong. Career loss, the risk that the foreign credential isn't recognized by employers back home. Social loss, the risk of returning without the promised outcome in a community that watched you leave. Immigration loss, visa refusal, route changes, the risk of not being able to stay long enough to recoup the investment. And relational loss, the cost of separation from family and community and the uncertainty of whether those relationships will be fully intact on return. Most institutional copy addresses 1, sometimes 2 of these, typically financial and career. The social, immigration, and relational dimensions, which are often the most emotionally acute fears, are almost never addressed directly. This connects directly to the cultural cognition research from Dan Kahan at Yale, which confirms that people from collectivist cultural backgrounds do not make decisions as sovereign individuals pursuing personal goals. For a student from Ghana, Nigeria, Vietnam, or the Gulf, the enrollment decision is inseparable from the question, is this a decision my family will support, and will this be understood and respected by my community when I return? Copy that speaks only to the individual student misses the actual decision architecture. The framework for this chapter is the international student decision architecture, 3 layers that must be addressed in sequence: risk, identity, and aspiration. Layer 1 is risk, the foundation that must be cleared before anything else will work. Until the perceived risks are sufficiently addressed, no aspirational copy will move the decision forward. For each of the 5 loss dimensions, there are specific copy elements required. For financial risk, specific tuition figures where possible in the student's home currency, total cost of attendance, scholarship options with specific award amounts, and refund policy for visa refusals. For career risk, named employers who have hired graduates from this program in the student's target market, employment statistics segmented by origin market, and post-study work visa route clarity. For social risk, alumni from the student's home country in roles their community will recognize and testimonials that speak to the return home experience, not just the study experience. For immigration risk, current visa success rate data, graduate route eligibility, and honest acknowledgement of what cannot be guaranteed. And for relational risk, named support structures with real contact details and evidence that students from similar backgrounds have navigated the transition successfully. Two is identity. Once risk is cleared, the student is ready to imagine themselves on the other side of the decision. Identity copy for international audiences is not generic aspiration. Names the specific version of the student that exists after the degree. The professional who returns to Lagos or Accra or Ho Chi Minh City with a credential that changes how they are perceived. The family member whose investment becomes a source of pride rather than anxiety. The person who took a risk their peers discussed but didn't take. Most effective identity copy uses the voice of alumni from the same origin market, not generic testimonials about program quality, but first person accounts of what the experience meant for their professional identity and their family relationships. A testimonial from a Nigerian graduate working at a Lagos investment bank, speaking about what the credential meant when she returned, is worth more than 10 polished institutional sentences about transformation. Layer 3 is aspiration, where the decision becomes compelling rather than merely justified. Risk addresses fear. Identity addresses self image. Aspiration addresses ambition, the specific forward looking picture of what the student is moving toward. And this is where specificity becomes critical. An international student from Vietnam targeting Singapore financial services has a different aspirational picture than a student from Nigeria targeting London law. Copy using the same aspirational language for both is not speaking to either. Let's look at how this architecture applies across origin markets because the configuration genuinely shifts. West African markets, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, present a profile characterized by high ambition, high family influence, acute credential recognition anxiety, and a strong community accountability dynamic. The question that dominates is not, is this a good university? But will this degree be recognized, respected, and rewarded when I return to Lagos or Accra? The most acute risk dimension is social, the visibility of the decision within the community and the consequences of returning without the promised outcome. Copy for West African audiences must address this directly, acknowledge the social context, provide evidence of outcomes the community will recognize, and give the student language they can use to explain their choice to the people whose approval matters. South and Southeast Asian markets, Pakistan, India, Vietnam, Malaysia, present a different profile. Family influence here is more financial than reputational. Parents who have made a significant financial commitment are evaluating the return with a precision that institutional copy rarely matches. For Indian applicants specifically, the largest international student origin market for UK universities, the dominant concern is post-study work rights and the employability of the UK credential in the Indian market. Copy must be specific about graduate route eligibility and about the track record of Indian and Pakistani graduates from this exact program in both UK, Indian, and Pakistani employment markets. For Vietnamese and Indonesian applicants, the identity narrative of being among the first from their family to study abroad is particularly powerful, the pioneer identity. Copy that acknowledges the courage of this decision and the significance of what the student is doing for the people who come after them resonates in a way that generic aspiration language never does. Gulf region markets, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar present a different challenge again. Students from the Gulf often apply with strong academic credentials and significant family financial support, but with a social and political risk profile that institutional copy almost never addresses. The credentials must be internationally recognized while also being respectable within a conservative social context. Support structures for Gulf students, prayer facilities, halal food, cultural community networks are not peripheral considerations. For many Gulf applicants, they are part of the risk clearing layer. Institutions that name these provisions specifically rather than burying them in a general international student support section remove a genuine barrier from the conversion path. Chinese applicants present yet another distinct profile. The decision is frequently shaped by the Gaokao score parental investment planning that began years earlier and a highly competitive reference group of peers who are simultaneously applying to the same tier of institutions internationally.
The aspiration frame that resonates most is not transformation, which Chinese students may find too individualistic, but elevation. Moving into a globally recognized tier of qualification that opens the specific doors the student and their family have been planning toward.
Let's close this one direct before and after. An opening paragraph for a UK MSc in Finance program page targeting West African applicants. The typical version. Our MSc in Finance is a rigorous research-led program delivered by a world-class faculty with extensive industry experience. Graduates have gone on to roles at leading financial institutions globally. The program is accredited by the CFA Institute and recognized by employers across the finance sector. Now, the question built on the international student decision architecture. If you are applying from Nigeria or Ghana, you already know that the credential matters less than the question underneath it. Will the firms that count in Lagos and Accra actually recognize this degree? 83% of our West African graduates were employed in their home market within 12 months. 3 of our Nigerian alumni are currently at Stanbic IBTC, Axis Bank, and PwC Lagos. The graduate route visa gives you 2 years in the UK after graduation to build the record before you return. Here's what the path looks like in practice. Same program, same facts, different architecture. The second version clears the dominant risk first, provides the specific social proof that matters to this audience specifically, and gives the student language they can use with their family. It converts because it understands who is actually reading it. If you would like the complete version of this chapter, including the full origin market breakdowns, additional before and after rewrites, and the implementation exercises, the book is in the description below. Available on Barnes & Noble, Everand, and Thalia. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.